Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Wilson, President, Jacksonville City Council, and we will begin this notice meeting at this time. I see Mayor Curry joining us. And so I think it's important for the record that we note which council members are here. So what I'll do is I'm going to go through all the council members by district, and I will just ask Steve to unmute you and identify yourself. And then we will turn it over to Mayor Curry after that for his briefing. And I would like to ask everyone to keep your questions somewhat brief. This is a first time for us, so we're learning as we go. And so I think it's important to try to keep it as simple as possible. Any questions you can ask outside of this notice meeting, you can get with them one-on-one outside of here. So with that, Steve, I'm going to ask you to unmute council members one at a time. And I guess the best way to do that, we'll just start with Council Member Joyce Morgan for District 1. You can just unmute her so we can see her there.
Good morning, everyone. Councilmember Joyce Morgan, District 1.
Thank you. District 2, Al Ferrero.
Can you hear?
Yes, Councilmember, we can hear you. So with that, Councilmember Aaron Bowman, District 3.
Aaron's here.
Very good. Scott Wilson, District 4, I'm here. Councilmember District 5, Leanna Cumber.
Leanna Cumber's here.
Councilmember District 6, Michael Boylan.
Michael Boylan is here.
Councilmember District 7, Reggie Gaffney.
Reggie Gaffney is here.
Councilmember District 8, Jacoby Pittman.
I'm here.
Very good. Councilmember District 9, Garrett Dennis.
Yeah.
Councilmember Dennis.
I keep everybody face on.
Okay. Councilmember District 10, Brenda Priestley Jackson.
You here? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I did not hear Councilmember Priestley Jackson. Councilmember District 11, Danny Beckton.
I'm here.
Okay, Councilmember Randy White, District 12.
Randy White, District 12 here.
Very good. Councilmember District 13, Rory Diamond.
Good morning, here.
Councilmember Randy DeFore, District 14.
Morning, I'm here.
Very good. Councilmember Group 1 at large, Terrence Freeman.
Hey, good morning, I'm present.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Group 2 at large, Ronald Salem.
I'm here.
Very good.
Now, do you want me to leave on this?
Councilmember Tommy Azuri for Group 3, Vice President.
Good morning. I'm here, present.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Matt Carlucci, Group 4.
Present and accounted for.
Very good. Councilmember Sam Newby, Group 5. Okay. Sounds like we're missing District 9 and 10 for now. They might join us in a minute. So with that, I'd like to welcome everyone to our first virtual live meeting. I've mentioned in emails that I hope to hold a training session or a practice session for us on Friday to get used to it prior to our committee schedule that begins next week with neighborhoods at 9:30 a.m. Looking forward to getting back to work with our committee structure. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mayor Curry. Mayor Curry, welcome, and thank you for providing us with an update.
Thank you, Council President. Well, good morning to each of you. It's good to see you virtually. I hope you're all doing well and taking care of your families. These are incredibly unusual times. And again, it's good to be with you virtually. I look forward to us being able to be back in a public space together at some point as well. I'm going to do a quick briefing and then take questions. And if questions need to go really deep and long, I'll obviously make myself and staff available even after this for phone calls or whatever each of you need. We're in the third week of our emergency declaration for COVID-19. As of last night, we had 163 positive cases in Duval County. The operations continue at Lot J and the Prime Osborne Center. We've tested 3,681 individuals in Duval County as of yesterday. That's 2,460 at Lot J and 221 at the Prime Osborne Center. Lot J is a federally mandated site. So we started with criteria there, which in the beginning included fever and respiratory issues. Working with our federal and state partners, we've dropped the temperature requirement. So anyone with respiratory issues can show up, be evaluated, and tested. The site is also open for first responders and healthcare workers who have direct contact with patients, regardless of symptoms. The Department of Health and Human Services has limited tests to 250 a day. And I know this has got some people concerned, but they put the limit on it based on supplies and the ability to get the test through the labs. The Prime Osborne Center is a city-sponsored testing location we launched in partnership with Baptist Health and Telescope Health. An evaluation by a doctor via Telescope Health website or mobile app is required prior to testing. The $25 fee is now being waived if Duval County citizens use the code HERE for you. That's HERE, the number 4, YOU. Patients will be given an appointment, time for testing, most of which are within 24 hours of the evaluation. I've heard many concerns regarding the delay in tests. These labs are incredibly inundated with test kits from Jacksonville throughout the entire region and, frankly, the country. I've issued 4 executive orders that include a comprehensive social distancing order, closed Duval County beaches, mandated employees that can perform their job duties from home, be able to do so, limited hotels and other commercial lodgings to essential lodgers after receiving information that our area hotels may soon be inundated with people from other counties. We cannot let that happen at this time. I spoke last week about how my team were working and looking at ways to help small businesses impacted by COVID-19 with city-specific financial assistance. In the next few days, we will announce more details, but today I can talk about a partnership between the city and VyStar Credit Union to help companies stay in business and retain their employees. We're looking at a $20 to $30 million program with a combination of grants, interest payments, and potential aid toward principal of the loan. It is my intention that the city's portion of this financial assistance will be focused on relief for small businesses and some elements tied to employee retention. We will submit legislation for council to consider in the very near future. These are unprecedented times. People have been thrust from normal routines. Some are out of work. Stress levels are peaking for many families and in many households. We've put together a list of resources on the city website so people can access some of the services they may need at these unusual times. Citizens can visit coj.net/recovery resources for information about financial recovery, mental health resources, and other helpful links. These include information on small business express loans, bartender emergency assistance, disaster unemployment, and more. Again, the website is coj.net/recovery resources. Again, I just want to thank all of you for the work that you do for the city, and look forward to taking your questions and getting through this unusual time together as one city, one Jacksonville. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Mayor Curry. So I guess what I'll do now is open up to questions. And I believe everyone probably knows how to raise your hand on the screen. So if you raise your hand, I'll recognize you for a question. I will say this is limited to council members only. So anybody viewing or watching, you're more than welcome to watch and see what we're doing. But this meeting is limited to council members only for participation purposes. So with that, I have Councilmember Cumber. If Steve could please unmute Councilmember Cumber.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Mayor Curry. I have a question about enforcement of the 6-foot rule and the kind of stay at home. The other night, Riverfront Park, which is right by Landon in San Marco, was shoulder to shoulder with people watching the sunset. I appreciate people want to be outside, but I think I'm interested to know how we're enforcing it. And I know that, we don't want to put it on JSO because our first responders between JFRD and JSO have so much going on as it is. But I'm wondering if the security the parks have can beef it up or something, just to make sure that people are really getting the message. It sounds like, reports out of California that, especially out of the Bay Area, that social distancing is actually working. Hopefully that pans out to be true. My concern is for people who aren't taking it quite as seriously, just to see what kind of enforcement we're having on that.
Yeah, we can certainly look at city resources in terms of what you just described, parks and whatnot. But I can tell you that we know over the weekend and talking with the sheriff, and we can get the sheriff to take questions at some point with this body as well. But if called, they've been responding. I know they broke up some block parties this weekend. So if you see something that looks dangerous, people shoulder to shoulder in crowds, at this point, it ought to be reported.
Okay,
And I'll
thank
have
you.
my team follow up with what we could potentially do in parks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. I have Councilmember Carlucci next.
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Council President. Want to commend you and your team on putting this technology together for the council. And I also want to thank the mayor and his administration. I know they're putting their heart into this and soul. My question is, I've read in a couple of places where there's an estimate on the peak of this virus, I guess, when it begins to maybe flatten out, hopefully. And the date seems to be in May on the 3rd. I don't know how true that is, but I'm wondering what the administration is hearing about any estimate. And also, if it does go to flatten out, of course, we're going to need to stay in the social distancing mode because we don't want to bounce back up that. And also, what are the chances? I've read or heard a newscast last night that this could come back in the fall as well. And of course, hopefully we'll be much more prepared at that point if it were. But Mayor, those are questions. If you could turn them into questions for me and give me your feedback, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Good to hear from you. Good to see you as well. I see you on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, the experts, I'm talking to the local hospital leaders. We have organized, structured calls where we're all together, and then I'm calling them throughout the week to get their feedback. And, the dates in terms of when it peaks vary a little bit, but sometime late April, early May, there seems to be some consensus around that. And the question is, have we flattened the curve? In other words, is the peak slowed because it didn't do this? It's a little longer, but it's flat. And we're practicing these social distancing and other measures we put in place to, in fact, make that happen. One of the things that we're really keeping a close eye on, which is hospital inpatients admitted for COVID-19, and that is to keep an eye on the availability of beds. We consistently get numbers that show pretty normal bed availability. That said, we've got the field hospital with the feds that can go up if needed. I know that other hospitals in town are also planning to expand if needed. So not that it's going to happen, but they want to be able to flip a switch and go if they have to. And in terms of it coming back in the fall, I've heard and read the same things you have. I think we need to get through this period now, and we're going to have to figure out as a country, frankly, what our day-to-day interactions and work life and recreational life will look like in a way that is safe. I would expect it's just going to be different, and we'll get through this and mitigate it and figure it out.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize that Councilmember Dennis and Priestley Jackson have been here through the entire meeting. For whatever reason, I wasn't able to hear them on the audio, but wanted to make note that they are here. I also have Councilmember Ferreira, who was unable to raise his hand, so I'm going to recognize him now. Councilmember Ferreira.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, and they were talking to me about other clinic about testing. Is there places that if they get filled, we can go to other ones? And also wanted to know what we're doing to keep a lot of the people coming from the areas that we have a lot of problems, like New York or Miami, coming into our city and filling up out here.
I'm sorry, Councilman, I didn't hear the first part of the question about testing.
So I've had a couple people who have been trying to go to the testing over at Lot J, and it sounds like they're meeting their capacities out there, and maybe some of the other spots haven't, is the questions that have been coming to me. I don't know if that's true or not. So is there any other testings that can be done other than in Lot A for the testings that are going on, like Mayo Clinic and things like that?
Lot J and Prime Osborne are the spots that we're affiliated with. Other testing locations people would have to work through their healthcare provider based on who their physician is and who their insurance is with. But right now, I would encourage people get to Lot J. You can get there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and that's when you can start in the line. Or you can go to the Prime Osborne Center and use the code, and the $25 fee will be waived. As it relates to people coming in to our county, look, I would applaud our governor, who is, people flying in from certain states are being checked and made to self-isolate for 14 days. And I believe it was yesterday they set up checkpoints as well coming into the state of Florida. I would say that, we're keeping an eye on, we put the hotel executive order in yesterday, and am exploring and would explore other options to ensure that people coming from hotspots don't land in Duval County.
Okay, very good. I'm going to recognize Councilmember Missouri. He also cannot raise his hand. So those are things that we can work on between now and Monday. Councilmember Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mayor, great job that you've been doing. Much better than most around the country, I think. And I appreciate you keeping the people aware, including us, of what's going on. Let me ask you, I know you have a number of options that you can, through your executive orders. The stay in place policy, are we going to wait on the governor to make a decision uniformly around the state, or is that an option that you're seriously considering as we reach a peak, if we do?
Yeah, so we are looking at, my team now looking at the executive order that the governor made uniform down in South Florida. I believe it was yesterday.
Right. I
will tell you that I've looked at that. That order is based on the Miami-Dade order. I've looked at that, and if you look at the exemptions in there for what businesses are considered essential or non-essential, we're virtually there with what I've done. Maybe even have gone a little further, because I've put a mandate in that says if your employees can work from home, they must work from home. That other executive order doesn't even limit the number of people in a space. That being said, we are looking at it. It is under consideration, but I would remind this body what we've done at this point. If you can work from home, you should be working from home. Mandated. Code enforcement is looking at the complaints currently. And if you have to work at your place of business, if your job duty is essential to be there, you should be practicing social distancing. And code enforcement is in fact looking at both of those requirements.
I appreciate it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councilmember Pittman next.
Thank you so much for your leadership and what you're doing. Can you talk a little bit about opportunities for the nonprofits with some of the funding that will be coming down the pipeline as well to the SBA? Can you hear me?
Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, I would start. Thank you, Councilwoman. I would start with the resources page that I had mentioned earlier. That is a wealth of information on what's available. And that's coj.net/recovery resources. We can do two things. We can get each of you that link, but also we can get on a telephone call with you and help work through that as it relates to make sure nonprofits are getting the support that they need to get through these times.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. So I have Councilmember Morgan, Salem, Newby, then Freeman.
Reggie's trying to ask questions as well.
Okay, I'll add him to the list.
Okay.
Councilmember Morgan?
Oh, thank you so much. I just want to thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for everything that you're doing. And while I have this moment, I just want to thank our first responders, our medical professionals, grocery stores, and other essentials that have been out there on the front line for us. It has just been amazing to watch what they're doing. So I really want to thank them for all of their hard work and their dedication to this community. I wanted to follow up on Councilmember Ferraro's question about testing. I looked at the numbers that you were talking about that have been tested so far, and I just want to ask the question, is this enough, and how do we get to the next level of possible testing?
The number of people tested at Lot J is a federal mandate. And we've got our testing set up at the Prime Osborne. Look, this COVID-19 landed in this country in an unprecedented way, and so the testing capability is something that you're frankly seeing around the country. I would argue if you could test everybody, you would, but it's just not possible. So right now, based on supply chains and what's available, we're testing what we can at those 2 locations, and then the hospitals are also doing their testing as the providers.
Thank you. And one last question.
And we also
go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, the governor announced a couple days ago that 500 of the tests, the ones that turn around almost immediately, are in Duval County, and they will be provided by a healthcare provider.
Excellent, excellent. And the last question is, would you have your staff get me a list of the non-essential businesses? Because as you said, you have asked everyone to work from home if they possibly could. And if they are essential, I can see where they would have to go in. But do we have a list of what we consider, or what the governor considers, or what the president considers as non-essentials?
We can get you a list, yes, of the executive order that Governor DeSantis made uniform in South Florida. We'll get you the list of essential and non-essential. It's in that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you, Mr. President.
Okay, we're going to recognize Councilmember Salem first, then we have Newby, Freeman, and then Gaffney and Dennis.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, Mayor, thank you for all that you're doing, and also to your staff for the continuous communication that I've had all throughout this process. But I have 2 quick questions. I have also seen large gatherings in parks in the greater Arlington area. What is the most appropriate way to report that? Question number 1. And question number 2 is, do you anticipate at this point City Hall being as we are today, at least through the end of April, or are you anticipating anything occurring before then?
I would start with let me start with the parks. So if you see behavior that is large crowds, person to person, no respect or practice of social distancing, you can call JSO, and they'll break it up. The second part of the question, this is new information that develops daily. And so, again, one of the things that I'm watching very closely is what's happening in Duval County in terms of hospital admissions and what's happening around the state. And it looks like late April, maybe longer. We don't know, but as this develops, we're just going to we'll keep the orders in place that will keep people safe and flatten the curve. But I would say to people, let's expect longer rather than shorter, and do the right things so the opposite will happen. We can get back before we expect.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, Councilman, don't on the parks, people should not call 911. They should call 630-0500. 630-0500. That's the non-JSO emergency.
That's the information I was looking for. Thank you.
Very good. So I have a Councilmember Newby, then Freeman, and then we'll go to Gaffney and Dennis.
First of all, I want to thank all my colleagues and all the citizens of Jacksonville for all their prayers. I'm doing really well. God is good and God is in control. And second of all, I want to just thank the mayor for all the great work that he's doing. Mr. Mayor, one of the concerns I have when it comes to testing and the criteria, I actually went to the doctor 5 times before they actually tested me because I didn't have the normal symptoms. I just had a stomach virus. So what are we going to do about people that don't have the normal symptoms?
Hey, Councilman, the issue is supply chain, and it's not just a Duval County issue, it's an issue everywhere. So supply chain and the availability of the labs to turn it around. So the medical professionals and the federal government are saying that in order to make sure that we have we can test people, they have to set some criteria. Unfortunately, that's just where we are. But I would say to people, if you have any symptoms, any flu-like symptoms at this point, just isolate yourself. Err on the side of safety to protect yourself and protect those around you. And that is just the unfortunate but very real world and reality that we're in right now. If we had the testing kits to do the widespread, everybody that was symptomatic, we would do it. If we could turn them around in labs, we would do it. And I would expect that there would be a national, state, and local goal as we get through this and get back to our lives at some point, that we've that we get to that capacity and ability to test people pretty quickly, so we can get them out of work environments and out of public spaces.
Thank you.
By the way, Councilman, it's really, really good, A, to hear your voice, and B, to see you on this this virtual meeting. I'm really, really good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll turn it over to Councilmember Freeman next.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mayor, for your consistent updates and communication. I want to offer continued prayers for each of my colleagues and for the city and the country. And my line of questioning would go back to the VyStar partnership. I've received many calls from small business owners in desperate need and asking, what is the city going to do? So it's great to hear of this upcoming agreement. And so I'll just ask these 3 questions. Do we have an idea yet? I know you said you're going to present legislation to us, but of a time frame of which it would take a business owner to complete the required work, the turnaround on that time frame to getting dollars, and lastly, the potential is that I would imagine this is working in conjunction with the stimulus package that came down. It would not negatively impact their opportunities for receiving those dollars.
72 hours for approval. Once they fill out the go through the process. How long will the process take? 5 days, soup to nuts, from beginning the process to approval and deploying the resources. So pretty quick turnaround. And I'm sorry, Councilman, what was the
last one? Just wanted to make sure that would there be any negative impact from the federal stimulus from the CARE Act that just kept passed by receiving those dollars earlier or anything like that?
Not based on the advice we got yesterday, and we'll make sure that we continue. We'll make sure that's buttoned up. But
I appreciate it.
No.
In such tough times as these, man, I really appreciate hearing that news. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So we have several council members who I'm going to recognize that were unable to raise their hands. Councilmember Gaffney, Dennis, and then DeFore. So if you could unmute Gaffney first.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Okay. Oh, good. Councilman Wilson, thank you for your leadership. And the mayor, I want to thank you also. I think Councilman Freeman just asked my question, so I'm going to shift gears because I was worried about the small businesses. But I want to talk about the churches because since we've been on this conference call, I had gotten several texts from churches to get some guidance on what can they do. And where of that church this past weekend, the pastor got arrested in Tampa. To the mayor, what processes that you're going to put in place to control the crowds of churches, or what do the pastors need to understand how to move forward in having these services?
So look, my executive order laid out the number of people that can be in a space at one time, and that remains in effect. So they should, I would ask, it's not specific to churches. They were just a part of a larger body of establishments that need to practice the social distancing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. So I have Councilmember Dennis and then Councilmember DeFore.
Good morning, everybody. It's so good to see everybody and see that everybody is safe. Mayor, I do have a question. These are some very unprecedented times, and especially for our region. It's so good to hear that we received $10 million reimbursement from the state to battle COVID-19. But my question is specifically to our city finances. How are we looking financially? I know we have some dollars in reserve, and we're supposed to be helping our citizens, keeping the services rolling. But how are we financially with everything going out? And I'm assuming revenues are probably flat or down because no one is out buying anything. Property tax, just things like that. So how are we looking financially? I know we haven't received a report from the auditors on our financial position. And if we're talking about, I think you said something like the end of April, maybe longer. Have you taken a look, several months down the line to see where we are and where we'll be financially to keep the city running?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's a question that's going to be we're going to be answering for a very long time because on the one hand, our finances are incredibly strong. We've added over $100 million to fund balance since we've all collectively been in office the last 4.5 years. That's the good news. While we're in strong financial shape, been in regular communication with the team and our CFO, this is going to be a long, hard road financially. And life, regardless of how this curve happens in Duval County, and regardless of when the country and the county gets back to work, life has changed. It's a completely different day. The things we were talking about in terms of budget a month ago, everything's going to have to be reevaluated, because the most important thing is obviously the basic services that the government needs to provide to its people needs to be provided. And there's going to be a lot of hurting people. There already are hurting people. And I expect the budgets that we collaborate with you on in the years ahead, the tough budgets, are focused on people and people's lives and trying to return them to a sense of normalcy and some stability and some security and health.
Very good. Okay, I have a Councilmember DeFore next.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mayor, I just really want to compliment you because this is a balancing act. The fact that you have joined and partnered with VyStar for this economic incentive package is huge because, as we all know, job loss and unemployment can result in equal amount of negative impacts to our families as the virus itself. So with that, I want to thank you for your continuing focus on the economic repercussions from this. That's it.
Very good. Thank you. Do I have any other council members that would like to speak? I don't see anyone else raising their hand, so I'll just go over a couple other things before we close out. The mayor and his team are working on the legislation to assist small businesses. We may take that up as an emergency next week, early next week by Monday. Their plan is to try to submit the legislation to all of us so we can review it prior to. So with that, with this legislation and any other legislation we take up, I would encourage you to get as many questions answered prior to our Zoom meeting as possible, because it's somewhat going to be challenging, especially if we have 19 members on here, to answer multiple questions over a short period of time. So any questions you can get answered on any legislation we have, including the legislation to help small businesses, if you get those questions answered ahead of time, that would be great. I know that's not going to work all the time, but your help would be very much appreciated. I just want to remind everybody that we're responsible for all City of Jacksonville employees, and that includes our ECAs. So as we work through this process over the next month or so, be very thoughtful about what we ask our ECAs to do. We don't want to put them in a position where we risk their health or safety either. So I know there's a lot of events that we all attend and we're all required to participate in, but just keep that in mind as you ask them to do different chores. I'd like to thank Cheryl Brown and Steve Casta and Melanie Wilkes and all of our staff. They've done an amazing job of preparing us for this Zoom meeting today and our meetings in the future, and I'm very appreciative of all the work they've done. I'd like to end by just asking everyone to support their local small businesses. The Chamber has started a program called Takeout Tuesday, so go to a small local restaurant and support them and try to buy food from them. So with that, I don't have anything else. If anyone else, any council members have anything they'd like to share, they are more than welcome to get on there now. I see no one. Mayor, I will turn it over to you before we close.
Thank you. Well, again, we're all in this together. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your families. And I just feel the need to stress again, piggyback off of the question that Councilman Dennis asked about our finances. We'll come out of this as a city and as a community. That's who we are. This county pulls together when times are tough. And so there's reason to be optimistic. That's who we are. But we've got to face the reality of the situation we're in, and that is people have lost their jobs. More people are going to lose their jobs. People that have poured their lives into creating small businesses, some have seen that evaporate almost overnight. And so we've got to be optimistic, action-oriented to solve this, but we've also got to be very real with people so we can take care of each other. So again, thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you again virtually at some point.
So I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Missouri for one brief last comment he wants to make.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quickie. Kyle, Billy has been sending me information. I would encourage Councilman Garrett and all the others, Dennis rather, all the others to, and ask Kyle to send out a snapshot of where we are with our budget, with our reserves, so they can compare apples to apples when the mayor submits his recommendations. I know that Kyle's working with Joey Greavy and the finance department. I think it's important that we get a head start on it. And I think if Kyle has the ability to do a one-page white paper on it, I think it'd be important for all of us to look at.
Very good. I'll ask Kyle to send that out to all 19 members. I know his staff is on here with us, so thank you for that. And with that, we will close this meeting. And I appreciate everyone for being here. Have a great day.